With Google Analytics, you get the reports, but Google gets your visitor data. And if you ever opened Google Analytics 4 just to check your website traffic and thought, why is this so complicated? Well, you're not alone. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to replace Google Analytics with your own self-hosted Matomo Analytics setup. This is the finished result, a private analytics dashboard running on your own subdomain, tracking real visitors in real time without sending that data to Google. For this tutorial, I'm using Cloudways, which is also the sponsor of this video. The link below is my affiliate link, which means I may earn a commission if you sign up through it at no extra cost to you. I'm using Cloudways because it lets us set up Matomo without manually configuring the entire server, database, SSL, backups, and scheduled tasks from scratch. By the end, you'll have your own analytics platform that you control, so let's get started. All right, let's go to matomo.org, and just so you know, you can pay to have this hosted in the cloud through Matomo's website, but we're gonna do the on-premise version here, download for free, and we're gonna download this zip file to self-host Matomo Analytics. All right, so that just finished downloading. We're gonna open that up in my downloads folder and extract it. And if we open that, you'll see another subdirectory called Matomo. What we're actually gonna do is switch over to a terminal window if you're on Mac or Linux. And if you're on Windows, you can open a command prompt. And we're gonna navigate to that directory. So we could use the CD command to go to our downloads folder, Matomo latest, Matomo, and then we can see those same files in here. Now, to deploy this onto a server, what we're gonna do is turn this into a Git repository, push that code up to GitHub, and then pull it down into our server. So in order to do that, we want to do the git init command right here. And now there are a few files in here that we do not want to include in our repository, so we'll make a .gitignore file. And by the way, I'm using the Nano text editor here. You can use whatever text editor you like. What we're gonna do is paste in these few lines of code, which, by the way, I have all of these commands on my website, which is linked below, so you can come in here, copy and paste them so you don't have to type everything out. All right, we'll save that with Control X, Y, hit enter. Now we can do the git add with a dot command to add everything except those files to our repository. And then we'll do a git commit with our commit message, initial Matomo install. Hit enter. All right, all that code is now associated with our Git repository. So the next thing we're gonna do is to go to github.com. And if you don't already have an account, you can go ahead and get one. It's free. What we're going to do is come up here to the plus, create new repository. I'm just going to call mine Matomo. Go ahead and give it a description, and then we'll keep everything the same except for visibility. You can keep it public if you want. I'm going to make mine private, and then we'll create that repository. Okay, GitHub kind of helps us out here. What we're going to do is push our existing repository from the command line. So let's open that terminal window back up. What we're going to do is git remote add origin with your URL, and then for good measure git branch -m main, and then finally git push -u origin main. And this will go ahead and push those changes up to GitHub. All right, that looks like it was successful. So what we could do is just simply refresh the page just to verify that everything's up here. And now we see those exact same files that was on our local computer on our GitHub repository. Okay, so now what we're gonna do is take these code changes and deploy it to our server, but we don't have our server yet, so let's go ahead and take care of that next. Go ahead and meet me in your Cloudways dashboard, and what we're gonna do is to launch a server. For the application, scroll down to PHP and select Custom App. We'll call it Matomo, name your server whatever you like, and then optionally you can organize into a project. For the application stack, we're gonna choose the hybrid stack. The cloud provider, you can choose whatever you like. I'm gonna do DigitalOcean, and for the database, MySQL 8.4. Now, as far as the server type is concerned, I'm gonna choose a basic standard server, and this is just fine for a small low traffic website or a few low traffic websites. But the good thing is that you can scale up as you need more resources. I'm going to start with a 2 GB RAM plan. And for the server location, you can choose whichever server is closest to you. Okay, so that looks good. Let's go ahead and click the Launch Now button down here. And this will be ready in just a few minutes. All right, cool. Our server has just been created. So what we're going to do is go into the Applications tab. And this is the fun part for me. We'll click on our application Matomo, come down here to where it says deployment via Git, and then we'll click the generate SSH keys button. Okay, so what we're gonna do with this SSH key is to copy it and then come back over to GitHub. Up here, there's a settings button. Whoops, sorry, not that one. This settings, and then come down to deploy keys, add deploy key, and then we'll say for this title Cloudways, and then we'll paste that key in there. All right, let's add that key. Great, so that key's in there now. Let's go back to the code tab. What we want is the URL to this repository. So under here, make sure in the SSH tab, we'll copy this URL right here, come back over to Cloudways, paste that in the git remote address, authenticate, Okay, that was successful. We'll fetch the branches. We only have one branch in this case, so we should see main pop up here. All right, and there it is. And then for the deployment path, we'll just leave the default under public HTML. Finally, click Start Deployment. Okay, so this will just take a few minutes at most. What this is doing is pulling that code down onto our server like we said, so catch up with you when that finishes. All right, our repository has been cloned onto our server. Now, at this point, technically Matomo is running on our server, and we can test that out under access details, get our application URL that Cloudways gives us in a subdomain. We'll open that up in a new tab here, and here is our Matomo installer. Now, while you could run this under this domain name, what we're going to do is set up a custom domain, specifically a subdomain. So I'm assuming you already have a domain name that we can just add a subdomain. I have my domain registered with Cloudflare, and here it is. We're going to be using jarlanta.com for this tutorial. So this process right here is going to be very similar depending on what domain register you used. Basically, all we want to do is to find the DNS settings for your domain name. We're going to add a DNS record. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to add a record. It's going to be of type A, and then the subdomain that we're going to choose is analytics. As you can see, it'll be analytics.jarlanta.com, and then the IP address we need from Cloudways. So let's go back over there, scroll on down here to our public IP. So we'll copy that and paste it in. All right, let's go ahead and save that. Cool. Now back over in Cloudways, we wanted to add an SSL certificate. So you could do that really easily. Again, under SSL certificate here, type in your email address and then that domain name and then install certificate. Now, depending on how quickly you do this and how fast your DNS propagation is, you might error out. So just give it some time and then come back in and try again. And then one other thing while this is issuing is to make that our primary domain name. So we can do that under the domain management tab here. And it looks like we'll have to wait until that's done. Okay, our certificate has been installed. So let's go back over here to applications and then domain management. We'll add that domain and then click add domain. Okay, that's been installed. We'll make that our primary domain name. Okay, so that domain has been associated with our application. It's the primary domain. We have our Let's Encrypt SSL certificate installed and auto renewal is enabled. So we shouldn't have to worry about that anymore. Now what we can do, instead of going to this subdomain that they give you, we can open up a new tab and go to our actual domain name, and there we go, we're good. All right, so let's go through this. So basically what happens here is Matomo does an automatic system check to make sure that your server looks good, and as long as we see green check marks, that means we're good to go. Stuff like this is a warning. You don't have to fix it, but for a couple of these I will show you how to fix it. So for example, like shell exec, if we want that enabled, that's a PHP function that is by default disabled in Cloudways. We can simply come back here to Cloudways, go to application settings, PHP FPM, and then down here in this list somewhere we have that. There it is. Okay, so as you can see, these are all disabled by default. All we have to do is get rid of that from that list to enable it. So we'll save that and then come back over to our installation. This one, the PHP FPM, this is actually okay. It's a warning, like I said. Cloudways handles our Apache Nginx server configuration, and then scrolling on down, everything else looks good. So let's refresh the page to see if shell exec goes away. All right, we'll scroll down here. Other functions, that looks good. So like I said, this is okay. Make sure you address anything that pops up. If you're following along, it should look exactly the same as me on Cloudways. So we'll go hit next. Now for the database setup, these credentials are automatically provided by Cloudways, so we don't have to do anything as far as manual database setup. So we can find that information back over on Cloudways. Access details. Here's our database name, so we'll copy that, paste it in. Username, copy, paste, and then password, copy, paste. Everything else could stay the same. And we'll hit next. All right, those tables were created, so hit next. Okay, let's create our user account for Matomo Analytics. I'm gonna call mine analytics admin and then give it a password, type your email, and then click next. Okay, now we can set up the first website that we want to add analytics to. I'm gonna add it to my real website, Tony Teaches Tech. Pick a time zone, and then whether or not it's an e-commerce site. Click next. And now what Matomo does is it automatically generates your tracking code. There's so many different ways you can add this tracking code to your website. I'll show you the way that I'm going to do it on my website, but it could differ slightly for you, even if you're using WordPress or something else different than that. Basically, as it says, it can kind of help you down here, different ways to add it for different applications. But let me show you how I'm going to do that with my website. So let me log into that real quick. So on my website, I'm using the GeneratePress theme, and under here I have elements that I can inject into the page source of my web pages. So I'm going to add a new element, and then I'm going to paste in that code that Matomo generated for us. And then for display rules, I'm going to choose the entire site, so that way this code is loaded on every single page and we're tracking users when they go to any page on my website. So we'll publish that. All right, we should be done in here, so we'll close out of that. And then down here at the bottom, we'll click next, and it says our installation is complete. So we'll go to the actual Matomo dashboard now. Go ahead and log in. Okay, now, and when you log in here the first time, you'll see the same setup type of screen. They do have a WordPress plugin if you are using WordPress to pull in your tracking code, or there are these other methods here. We've already done that, so I'm not sure why this is showing up, so I'm just going to hide this page for an hour. And so here is your Matomo Analytics dashboard. Let's see if our tracking code is working by going to visitors and real time. And now let's do a page hit. So I'm going to go to Tony Teaches Tech, see if that pops up. There it is. Okay, so we got that. And now we could see that on a real-time map. So that's where I'm located. Let's try it with my cell phone. There it is. Okay, so I'm in the same location, so we could see both of those on top of each other. We should see two separate, yep. So my phone and my computer, both running Mac or iOS. Okay, now there's one last thing we want to do to have a stable installation for Matomo, and that is to create a cron job to automatically process our tracking data or reports, so that way when you come to the web browser here, it loads instantly. So we're going to do that back in Cloudways. We want to go to the cron job management tab, and a cron job, if you're not familiar, is just basically like a scheduled task. In the advanced section here, back on my website, we want to copy and paste this command. And what this is going to do is, with the PHP program, it's going to go to this URL. We're going to fix this in a bit. Under our public HTML directory, there is a file under there called console, and then the command is going to be core archive. This is going to run, what this over here means is it's going to run 5 minutes past the hour every hour. So the only thing I have to fix is your app folder. Where do we get that? That's back under access details. Well, technically it's here, but I'm wrong. It's under application settings. It's the same folder name. Cloudways kind of reuses that throughout your application. So this is your folder underneath that path. So we'll go back to cron job management, advanced, and then we'll paste that in from my website with our folder name. So it should look something like this. Now you could keep this at 5 past the hour, but I want to test this in real time with you guys. So right now it's 10:49 a.m. Let's do this at 10:51 a.m. just so we can verify that it's actually running. So we'll save those changes. And then back over in Matomo, let's go to settings, diagnostics, system check. And if we scroll down here to the cron section, we'll see that we have successfully set up the cron job. It also wants us to disable the browser triggering. So let's do that now. If we go back up here to the system tab, general settings, and then right here, archive reports when viewed from the browser, we'll set no, and then save that. And one more check under diagnostics, system check. Coming on down here to the cron section, everything looks good for that. Now, you will have a couple other warnings here. So the load data in file, this is for high traffic websites with a lot of tracking data. You can work with Cloudways customer support to enable this if you think you need that. And then the force SSL connection, while we could log in via SSH and add this to our config file, it's not necessary because we are using Cloudways and we have issued the SSL certificate. So Cloudways manages redirecting HTTP to HTTPS. And then everything else looks good in here. One last thing I'd like to do is to come back into Cloudways and go to our server, and then under backups, let's schedule some server backups so that way we don't lose our data. So we'll do every midnight, and we'll retain those for up to 4 weeks and save that. Have fun with Matomo Analytics. If you want another project to host, check out this video next where I show you how to self-host your own website. I'll see you guys over there.